Hello, and thank you for joining us for today's event. This is entitled Comprehensive Data Protection for Hybrid and Cloud Environments with Druva. And we're very happy to have our audience here today, as always. And we have a few things we want to take care of. We're going to do some introductions shortly. I'm Scott Lowe with Actual Tech Media. I do these every once in a while. Please make sure if you have questions, you ask them in the using the Q/A button at the bottom of your console. And we have a number of handouts for today's event. So please make sure you take a look at the handouts to the right-hand side of your screen, including information from Druva, as well as the Actual Tech Media events calendar and our prize terms and conditions. That's all important stuff. And don't forget, if you are a prize winner, we will be asking you for a Form W-9 because the IRS, the U.S. federal government, always wants their cut of everything. So we have to make sure that we collect that from you if you are today's winner of an Amazon gift card. We have a couple of great speakers from Druva today. We have Peter Ellerman, who's the Director of Product Marketing, and Jesse Kachapis, who is the Director of Solutions Architecture. They're both going to be providing a fantastic presentation today around data protection for hybrid and cloud environments. And without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Peter and Jesse.
Our topic today is comprehensive database protection for hybrid and cloud environments. My name is Peter Ellerman. I'm your host and one of your speakers today. I'm part of the product marketing team at Druva, and we have with us Jesse Kachapis.
Hello, everybody.
Jesse's joining us and is going to be talking as well about what some of our customers have done.
Let's take a brief look at our flight plan for this session. I'll talk about why cloud data protection. Jesse will cover typical cloud migration strategies for databases, as well as some customer success stories, talking about how Druva customers have moved some or all of their databases from on-premises to the cloud and protected them. And then I'll talk a little more about how you can future-proof data protection for your databases and perhaps other workloads as well. And then we'll wrap up with a few key takeaways. Infrastructure changes are disrupting data protection. Cloud architecture is here, and it's driving change. You can look at what analysts say if you don't see it in your own environment, or talk to some of your peers. And Gartner estimates that 80% of enterprises will migrate away from and close their on-premises data centers by 2025. That's really just a continuation of the data center consolidation trend that's been going on. You, or perhaps your peers that you know, are moving workloads, either consolidating them down to a colo or down to a single data center, or simply moving those workloads to the cloud. Now, the second area is storage growth and cost. And that continues to be one of the biggest and most important areas for CIOs, where they're searching to find savings. ESG cites 54% of CIOs see this as one of the best opportunities for cost savings. And finally, security and compliance. I think there's almost not a day that goes by without some type of ransomware incident that's hitting in the news. It continues to be an important topic, and backup, of course, plays a critical role in both the security of corporate data, but also recovering from something like a ransomware attack. And here you see Gartner estimates not only that 40% of businesses managing their networks will be hacked, but that as many as half won't even know. So let's look back at the major shifts that have occurred the last 30 years. Two major reasons to change data protection solutions over this time period have been application changes and technology changes that improve scale, cost, and efficiency. The big inflection point across all these waves has always been application changes, replatforming, or again, new technologies that drive scale, cost, and simplicity. If you look at where we are today, current backup and data protection architectures have been built on the very same layers that make the data center. Each technology supporting a new generation of applications has spawned its own data protection solution, each increasing complexity. The focus was always on infrastructure, with the assumption that data would grow slowly and stay in the data center and be needed by thousands of users. And in this sense, the cost and responsibility of managing the infrastructure seemed affordable. But then comes cloud. It changes the landscape in all directions. Applications change, they become more distributed, from mobility to SaaS applications that are serving many, many times more people. And in that sense, when that occurs, the infrastructure is abstracted. And when that happens, applications start leaving the data center and moving to the cloud. And because the cloud enables storage and compute to yield value from vast amounts of data, that's causing a shift. So this growth in distribution, growth in data and distribution of data, and the changes that it's driving in applications is causing a great challenge for data protection infrastructure. Today, it's trying to cover the business as it was yesterday and not how it needs to be today, to be resilient, and tomorrow to be agile. So how do you keep organizations protected? Well, the cloud provides the solution again, as we at Druva have proven for close to 10 years. The data protection landscape evolves too, as the cloud enables 3 key inflection points. Let's take a look at this. While a few years back, 95% of applications were run on premises, and organizations had to manage them and their underlying capabilities, things have changed. Applications are evolving, being moved to new platforms, rehosting, refactored, or simply replaced with SaaS. And this application trend accelerated in the pandemic. Druva believes that a new rule of 33% is emerging that will drive the future application landscape. 33% of applications will remain in the data center. Now, this doesn't mean that all of the underlying infrastructure will remain on premises too. But 33% of the applications will be either migrated / refactored to run in the cloud, or they'll simply be redesigned and built in a fully cloud-native fashion. Even technologies historically associated with the data center, like NAS and Oracle and SQL, are now migrating. And inversely, standard cloud technologies like Kubernetes are addressing both on-premises and cloud deployments. And finally, 33% of applications will be consumed as SaaS applications. Now, if you take just the top 2/3 of these applications, it will equate to 85 million applications over the next 10 to 15 years. As applications get replatformed, you'll start to rethink how they're protected and what public cloud can do for you. Data protection needs to provide resilience for these applications wherever they run to ensure pervasive security and data governance. The second area is the cost curve. Public cloud is bending the cost curve. Let's look at the scale and cost capabilities that public cloud has brought to the table. There's been a massive shift, not just in core storage, but everything in public cloud. From compute, GPUs, and the benefits of ARM processors and what they enable for processing, to nearline and cold storage, and the ability of the cloud to handle metadata at scale. And so while hardware storage costs have decreased, cloud storage costs have decreased way faster, as much as a 60% CAGR over the last 5 years. And so the shift really is both in the ease of data management and the cost of storing data. And that's going to create an order of magnitude difference in how data is managed in the public cloud compared to on-premises. That is why we believe that data protection is hitting a tipping point, such that it is viewed and managed from a whole different lens. And this has been consistently true across other areas of the data center. So let's go to the third tipping point, SaaS applications. Salesforce back in 1998 was one of the first big categories of applications to deliver the value of SaaS, and it's with its no hardware, no software tagline. Slowly, other lines of businesses followed suit, like IT service desk automation, developer tools, ultimately databases and infrastructure. And then finally, it's no surprise that data protection too is following that trend as organizations seek to use the cloud to improve the durability and agility of data protection. Cloud data protection completely disrupts the preconceived notions of data protection and empowers its user with 4 major capabilities. First is you can manage data, not infrastructure. Allows you to ensure that data remains an asset and not a liability, and provides the means to manage that asset by removing the burden of infrastructure. The next area is economies of scale. Cloud enables customers, you, to cope with the growth of data and its growing importance, giving you the tools to manage data at scale and with lower cost. The next is that ability to protect data wherever it's served, whether it's on the edge, whether it's in the data center, whether it lives in the cloud. And finally, you can leverage innovation to stay ahead. The cloud ensures that your data protection platform is not only always up to date, but it allows companies to get additional value from their data, to see more about the patterns of the data, to better protect the data, and to serve other business needs. We built the Druva Cloud platform to meet and serve this vision of the future. Druva removes the need to manage infrastructure across workloads from the edge to the data center to the cloud. And yet we recognize that customers will have different applications in different locations, which is why we built this infrastructure in the cloud to create a common workflow and to deliver consistent SLAs to customers. By putting the data in the cloud, we can help organizations meet not just data protection needs, but data governance and cyber resilience SLAs as well. Customers can search their data for e-discovery or to address privacy and compliance needs. And we're building these deep workflows to enable customers to do this. And finally, the platform can improve cyber resiliency, from protecting backups from ransomware all the way to accelerating recovery in the event of a ransomware attack. Now, if you haven't heard or know much about Druva, here are a few metrics to help you understand the order of magnitude of where we are today. Scale, Druva is managing more than 1 billion backup operations per year. The platform is continuing to grow. In fact, we have 4,000 plus customers worldwide, and we're fortunate to get more every day. And we've seen data growing at 50% year over year. We have a global presence in 14 plus AWS regions and counting to serve not only different locations, but also to help customers comply with data residency laws. And finally, Net Promoter Score. Our score of 88 is one of the highest in the industry and a testament to our focus on delighting customers. So now let's shift more specifically to database backup approaches. Let me turn it over to Jesse.
So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. Thanks for joining. Wanted to talk a little bit about what the market looks like today, what we see our customers doing today as far as database protection. So typically, almost always when we go into a customer account or a customer approaches us, they are running a backup for their applications in their environment today. So today we see two typical approaches to data protection for databases. One is the agent-based approach, and the other would be this stage and sweep, or what's commonly known as a dump and sweep. In the agent-based approach, customer is going to be running the backup vendor's agent on the database server, and it's going to tie into the backup workflow directly by moving the data straight through the backup server to the backup storage, and send then either replicating that data either to deduplication appliance or offsite to a storage cloud library, or even to tape and sent offsite for long-term storage. But all the management operations are in the agent itself and managed by the backup software. And then on number two would be the dump and sweep, or the stage and sweep, and that's using the native tools within the database application. And in there, most commonly you see in Oracle, it's the Oracle's RMAN, Recovery Manager solution, and in SQL, it's in SQL Studio has the ability to create backup files. And in that, what you're going to do is you're going to trigger off a backup to a disk-based target typically. That could be a local disk attached to the application server, most likely to some sort of network disk location. And then you're going to sweep that up typically by the backup software using some sort of file agent, and then that will be put into the process of the backup software to move that data to separate copies and multiple copies, and eventually off to some other type of media. There's lots of challenges with both, right? On the agent-based approach, we typically, if either a customer is using an agent or they're not, and it's usually around DBA, database administrator control of the application. Some DBAs simply just don't want to have an agent installed on their application, right? That's their bread and butter, and they simply just don't want anything to have any interference with its performance, and so they just simply won't allow it. And then on the stage and sweep, generally the storage requirements are a bit higher. So in the plus side, the DBA gets a little more control over the backup processes because they're using their trusted tools, but the storage administrators, the backup administrators, they have less control, less visibility, and managing the backup copies become more burdensome because you have, essentially moving around flat files and to ensure that they're protected. And then what we're seeing now is when customers are rehosting their databases into the cloud. So this is typically a lift and shift model. So they're simply just taking an easy use case for adopting cloud is lift and shift. It's taking your existing SQL or Oracle servers and just lift and putting them into the cloud. So running SQL or Oracle on EC2 instances. It gives you a lot of the benefits of running of leveraging cloud by moving it there, less infrastructure on premises, some more flexibility in the cloud as far as resources go. But the challenge along this comes with the backup solution, right? Is just simply taking your on-premises backup infrastructure and then moving that to the cloud typically doesn't go really easily. It adds a lot of complexity to the solution. It can add in a lot more cost because now you're taking those components that were traditionally running on premises on servers that you own, and then now paying per hour for them in the cloud. So complexing the cost simply just continues to go up for this. And so this is where customers would a lot of times will come to Druva, and we'll have discussions around how Druva can help. So as you can see here from a solution standpoint, cloud data protection can really help reduce complexity and costs of when you migrate these workloads to the cloud. So this is sort of an ideal environment for Druva. So on the bottom part on the on-premises side, same way that we protect those databases on premises can port directly to the cloud. So as a direct-to-cloud model, there's no infrastructure to install up in the cloud or on premises. So to us, the way that we typically view it is that we don't really care where the applications exist. They can list behind your firewall in your data center physically, or they can live in your cloud account in AWS. We back them up the same way, and we provide both options to do so. So let's talk about some customer success stories that we've done recently. So this was a customer who came to us with a cloud-first strategy. So when the customer comes to us with this strategy already in place, Druva is a natural fit, right? It's a natural fit because our whole motto and our whole goal is to reduce infrastructure and help customers adopt cloud technology a lot easier during that transition. And so this customer fit that profile really well. They had a multi-year plan to consolidate and reduce data center footprint, multiple data centers scattered throughout the US, and move as much workloads as they can to AWS. Their end goal in this whole game was to refactor these applications. So not only just lift and shift the database to the cloud, but eventually transition into cloud native solutions. So things like AWS RDS for SQL or Oracle. Again, is a long-term goal for them, but getting the backups into the cloud was the first step. They had a large on-premises Oracle and SQL footprint, lots of instances, enormous amount of growth. Initial phase is a lift and shift of the applications into EC2, like I mentioned earlier. So they weren't going to re-platform right away. That was their long-term. Phase one is really taking the infrastructure and putting it into the cloud and running those applications up there. Lots of challenges that they have, right? Things that we have to meet from a requirement standpoint. One is long-term retention of the data. So minimum of 7-year retention on all the data, sometimes much, much longer. They're running a lot of legacy operating systems that simply aren't supported in the cloud. These are applications or OSs that have been up and running for a while. And so it's one of the challenges they have to work around. They wanted something to back up new applications that were running in the cloud. So, as they made transitions into native cloud services, they wanted to ensure the platform that they chose had solutions to meet those requirements. Management overhead costs were very high. This is typically what we see, from a data protection, a backup or recovery standpoint. A legacy environment typically is a lot of hardware, a lot of servers, a lot of storage, a lot of management, a lot of licensing challenges, things around that. And in this case, the customer was up against the clock for a renewal of their existing solution, which had been in place for 10 plus years. So they wanted to avoid having to re-up everything that they had. So they had a short time frame to get a proof of concept up and running, validate the Druva technology, and start making the move over. So number one, like how Druva enabled this customer is that we did enable their cloud strategy, right? When we talk about backups, right, it's backup storage is typically something like 3x, 4x, 5x of your primary storage, right? So you're talking about lots of buckets of data that have to be maintained, especially in a scenario like this where you have a long-term retention requirement. And so by just cutting that off and saying, okay, now we're going to the cloud, we really significantly decreased the amount of infrastructure that they would have to manage today and in the future just for their backup copies. So they're able to eliminate tapes and all net new creation of any of these silos. From a simplification standpoint, we helped accelerate the database migration, right? Now that the data was protected in the Druva cloud, being hosted inside of AWS, making the migration from the on-premises environments and doing that lift and shift of the data into the cloud, it made it a lot easier for them. So, from an insurance standpoint, from a worst case scenario, if they couldn't get the migration to work right away, at least the backups were already in the cloud and they could recover them really quickly. But they were also able to recover the data into their VPC in the cloud from the Druva cloud, the backup copies, and ensure that the backups were good and get the applications up and running, again, from a testing standpoint and staging before the actual migrations. Now they have a single solution, whether it's they still have infrastructure in their data centers. They haven't eliminated them completely, but now they have one solution that's protecting both of those environments. So they can set a single set of policies across that. All the security, all the management of the data is all under the same umbrella. And so just from a management standpoint, it's cut out a lot of the fat. And then from a cost standpoint, there was a significant cost savings here. Customers, as they start looking at cloud strategy, cost is is the largest component of that. So they start doing their homework and they start looking at the numbers. So one of the things this customer did with us is they did a big focus on the backup infrastructure costs that they had today. They even went as far as running proof of concepts of competing solutions to port them to the cloud, all against what versus a Druva solution. And we came in at a 3x less overall cost all in to the customer. So saw that savings right away and are continuing to experience that. So another customer of ours, when we were introduced to them, they had already done the lift and shift of their Oracle and their SQL databases into AWS. And what they were doing from a backup standpoint was sort of known in the industry as a Frankenstein solution, right? What they had done is, in this case, on the top right there, they were doing local snapshots, migrated the application, in this case, SQL and Oracle, Oracle and Linux and SQL and Windows. And for a backup solution, they were doing native dumps, so stage and sweep of those applications down to a local volume on the EC2 instance, the same EC2 instance, and then snapshotting that volume and then replicating that volume. From a cost standpoint, it added up very quickly. So it was a really expensive solution to run. First of all, from a capacity standpoint, because essentially what they were doing is retaining two copies of EBS snapshots. So you can look on list price for those, but they're 5 cents a gigabyte per month with Amazon. And then also moving those snapshots around. And then from a complexity standpoint, it was quite complex because there was no backup software in the mix here managing retention policy. So it was a very manual process. So what happens is a lot of snapshots get orphaned, get kind of forgot about until you get the monthly bill that comes in. When we came in, this is what we were up against with the customer. Obviously, they weren't happy with this solution. They weren't happy with both the management aspect of it, nor the cost that they were doing this. So Druva came in and we deployed for both SQL and Oracle here. In the Oracle environment, what we did is we deployed what we call a Druva Phoenix Backup Store, the PBS, in the cloud on the left. That's just a virtual appliance that runs in the cloud. And then we integrated with Oracle's RMAN Recovery Manager solution. From a SQL standpoint, they leverage our SQL agent and just went straight from host to the Druva cloud. The beauty here, again, what Druva provides on the right hand side here, all the security, transport of the data. I know we send the data encrypted, we store it encrypted. We manage the data on the back end according to policies that the customer sets up. So any retention policies that are required. And then we also tier that data down to cold storage by policy if the customer wants to save some money. So we have a built-in feature that allows us to lower costs for customers if they choose to move data to cold storage faster. We optimize the storage costs all the way through. So on the Oracle side, by leveraging the built-in optimizations within the RMAN solution, we were able to get really, really good deduplication, really good compression, and very fast backups and restores. So if I back up and go back to their previous recovery time objectives, what they had to do is they had to instantiate a snapshot and before they could restore the data and then bring it in. And each part of that takes time. With the Druva solution, they were able to create a 7-day local recovery window that allowed them to create meet any RPO and RTO that they required. So it just became a lot faster, both from a backup and restore standpoint, and then a lot more secure and efficient. One of the things this customer is doing as well is that we are introducing an agent for Oracle soon. So just like we do with SQL, you'll be able to install an agent on your Oracle host, and then you can write your backups. The backups can go straight to the Druva cloud. The beauty of this, again, from a Druva standpoint, the way that we look at it is it gives the customer choice. So they can still do the stage and sweep if they want to do that, or they can leverage the Druva agents for both applications.
Well, thanks for talking a bit about the customer stories. I might chime back in, Jesse, and talk a little bit here, maybe get your help as well. The first piece I want to talk about really is pulling back out a little bit. How can you future-proof your data protection strategy and really talk about the broader Druva architecture. So as Jesse mentioned earlier, Druva has a direct-to-cloud model, and using that whenever possible can drive significant benefits for customers. And so what you see here is really just a picture of the workloads we support and the ability to sort of back those up directly to the cloud. But of course, also the goal is to demonstrate what else comes with that, right? So the workloads you see on the left can be running anywhere. They could be on premises, or as we were talking about earlier, they could be in the cloud. So Oracle could be in the cloud. You could have EFS, Elastic File System, or something like Amazon Windows Services, Amazon FSx FXS running in the cloud as well. So the beauty of a cloud-centric approach is that ability to give you that unified console, that ability to protect both workloads you have in a data center and remote offices, and support that move to the cloud and support that. And it'd be no surprise that, of course, we have extended what we do for VMware to support VMware Cloud. So being able to protect VMware wherever you're running it. And once that data, backup data, is in the cloud, that enables a lot more flexibility as it relates to DR. So Druva also has a very strong DR story, in particular, ability to sort of fail over your VMware infrastructure, your VMs in the cloud very quickly, in as little as 30 minutes, failing over as many VMs as you need to. And so that really makes, or provides, I should say, customers with an alternative to what they may have been doing in the past, which may have been simply replicating data off to different sites and maintaining that infrastructure. So here, a bit more detail on the Oracle, specifically our Oracle capabilities and what Jesse was talking about. And specifically, what I talk about first is, our technologies are RMAN integrated. And so what Jesse talked about was our customers using the Phoenix backup store that you see there in the picture, and then a capability we announced just a few months ago, which is in early availability today, and that's the direct to cloud model. And it's the ability to have both capabilities is appealing, we think, to many customers, and we know our existing customers are excited. This really allows you to sort of match the right sort of capability, backup capability to both your environment as well as your DBA needs or your backup team needs. With the Phoenix backup store, right, customers can get things like incremental forevers and the incremental merge capabilities that Jesse was describing that really give you those very fast backups and those very fast recoveries that you need. Both solutions offer the granular point in time recovery that you might expect. But where a lot of customers see substantial value is I can keep my local copies if I need to, but then I can keep my long-term retention in the cloud and automatically move that to a lower cost storage tier. And so that becomes very appealing. And then, we continue to introduce a lot more automation. So our agent-based approach, this direct to cloud approach that we'll have, brings a lot of automation that some customers want or need in their environment. Things like automated database discovery and simplified one-step type restores. At the end of the day, the cloud-based approach the goal is to simplify management across the team and to reduce the infrastructure you have there. Provide the options for backup and recovery and help customers lower their TCO while improving their security. On the SQL side, you see something that's pretty similar, right? The idea of a direct to cloud backup as well as app aware backup and recovery if you're running SQL in a VMware environment. So again, that becomes really powerful because some customers are simply migrating from SQL Server and they just want to run it in a VM, or other times they want to put it up in the cloud. The idea that you could have that consistency and that ability to move to the cloud and do it without having to change your backup approach has a lot of appeal and value to customers. The other point I might talk to is, some customers do have bandwidth or other constraints. We offer a capability called Cloud Cache, which is really a software appliance that allows you to keep local backup copies, on premises. And so when you have bandwidth constraints or strict RPOs or RTOs, it's there for customers to deploy whenever they need. It's a no charge feature of the product and allows customers to address some of those demanding requirements. We typically see customers might use it in a remote office. They have very limited bandwidth, and sometimes they'll use it in the data center too, just if they need to. Bringing a lot of really the same benefits you see, this management simplicity, high performance backups, and easy recovery. Jesse, anything else you want to add on?
I think it's great information. I think it just plays into our our messaging of options to the customer, right? We want to be able to provide different ways to protect these workloads for our customers. The three approaches you see here are a good example of that.
So why do customers choose us? Well, a bit of what I was just mentioning earlier is simplicity. There's no certification, no training required to start using Druva. Because it's SaaS-based, you can deploy it very quickly and really at the pace that you need. So if you want to start with a particular project, it's not a huge effort to get it up and going because you don't have any hardware, don't have any software to manage. And of course, there's lots of benefits with no patching and procurement. The scale is there when you need it because Druva is running in AWS. So you have that infinite scale and you have the service tiers and features really to allow you to kind of do more with that data that's there. And what we'll show you maybe on the next slide is we help customers not only meet, but exceed some of their existing SLAs. I think Jesse talked about that, for example, with the customer having the database backups in the cloud, that the move to the Druva approach actually improved their RTOs. Security is really on the table and part of every conversation. And Druva has numerous certifications. And really, more importantly, we've built security into our architecture. So it's a zero trust architecture, and we use a common SaaS capability called envelope encryption which means that we have no access to your data or to the encryption keys of your data. So it's unique to you. We can never access or see your data. From a ransomware protection perspective, right, that's a lot of times customers are trying to get their data off-site, of course, but just because it's off-site doesn't always mean it's protected if it's still connected to your network. When you move your data to the Druva cloud, that data is isolated from your network, and that creates an air gap, which allows you to protect that data from a ransomware attack. And all these pieces together really help you drive a better TCO in your environment. Druva has been passing decreasing cost on to its customers with capabilities like our long-term retention or direct-to-cloud archive, and there's transparent pricing as well. So you sort of know what you're consuming and you know what your prices are going to be. All those are benefits. But really, we love what our customers say as well about us. And so just a few pieces, I should say, of information from some of the many case studies in our case studies, right? 80% less time managing backups, 52 workloads moved to the cloud in 3 months, and a 3x better TCO versus traditional and hyper-converged infrastructure solutions. So I encourage you, if you're interested, to look more at some of the case studies. Premier Networks was delighted to see faster backup and restores for their SQL databases. And there's more stories like these, like some of the logos on the bottom as well on our website. So I encourage you to go out and take a look for yourself. So what I hope you got from this was really a sense for how public cloud really can change the data protection game. SaaS data protection is really about more than technology. It's about an operational shift that you're probably already going through in your own environment as you adopt and use more cloud-based technologies, as you move more of your workloads to the cloud or begin to use more SaaS applications in your environment. And on-premises databases are moving to the cloud. As you might know, that doesn't happen all at once. And this is the pattern we see within our customers. They're moving to the cloud at different paces with different projects. They want to be able to have that coverage for both on-premises and cloud. And so as you start to make that shift, as you start to consider lift and shift, you then suddenly begin to think, wow, how do I make data protection easier? And Druva can be there to help you not only make that transition, but really to increase your confidence and give you more control. So that's why we think rethinking data protection is critical. Your end game is probably greater use of cloud, and the sooner you can get your backup data there, the more value and efficiencies you're going to be able to drive in your environment. So I encourage you to look at us for both your on-premise and your cloud data protection challenges. I'd encourage you to attend a demo. We run them on a weekly basis. Always happy to set up something custom for you. We do offer free trials, and we do have a TCO calculator. It's a 5-step calculator just to help you think through some of the savings you might be able to drive in your environment. All right, we have some questions that have come in through the chat. And Jesse, I might ask you to ask some of these. One of the questions was, can I restore my database to another location?
Good question. Yes. So, kind of the beauty here is once the data has been backed up into the Druva cloud, we have the ability, you can restore the data virtually anywhere, right? So you just have to set up a target for the restore and register with the Druva system, but you do have the ability to restore, to perform what's called a redirected restore of that data, that data to any target. So we've had customers, back up on-premises data and then, deploy resources in their VPC in AWS and just restore it to there.
Another question was, is there a cost for restoring that data?
No. So that's another beauty of the Druva solution, right? Whereas as a SaaS-based platform, it's an all-in cost. So everything, we license based on post global dedupe storage usage, and that includes all the restore costs. So you can restore data all day long and never incur a bill. So there is no cost for restores.
So, RPOs and RTOs are certainly always on the mind of those protecting databases. We've talked a bit about it. Can you just expand a bit more on can customers really do that and how Druva does that?
No, that's another great question. Yeah, so we have technologies that can help with that, right? So we have our cloud cache technology. So, with SQL, backups can run to a local backup appliance that then sends the data up to the cloud. We call it Cloud Cache. It's a software-based appliance that we give the customer. It's included in your licensing. There's no extra cost for it. You just have to procure your own hardware, but it acts as a local backup copy, and you can configure that from anywhere from 5 to 30 days of backup copies. All the data is still deduped, compressed, and encrypted on that device. So if you wanted to keep, a week's worth of backups local, same thing with our Oracle solution is you can, with the PBS model, the backups land locally first, and you can create what's called an RMAN recovery window for 7 or 14 days to keep those backups local. In both cases, the backups are always replicated to the cloud. So if you have the smoking hole in the ground scenario, all your backups would still be safe up in Druva, but any restores from within a specific time frame would come back at local land speeds. So yeah, there's lots of features in options when it comes to meeting RTOs as well.
Sure. RPS, yeah, and things like the source space deduplication and forever incrementals, et cetera, can help with some of the RPO challenges that customers have. One last piece on the ransomware protection. So can you just maybe expand a little bit on that and how we help there?
Yeah, a lot of the risk today or a lot of the threat today with ransomware is that they're getting smarter, and there's publicized cases of this now where the ransomware goes after the backup, right? They kind of figure out what backup you're using and then where you're writing your backups to, and then they go and encrypt the backup copies. Because typically an administrator who's compromised also has access to the backup copies. So we see that coming more and more. So with Druva, there is no root access to the Druva cloud. So it is a virtually air-gapped copy of the data. Once the data is backed up to Druva, you can't get to it. So any kind of ransomware that propagated throughout your local systems simply just doesn't have access to the Druva cloud. The only way to access the data is actually through the Druva portal. And even then, can't root access the data. It can just restore it. So just out of the box, we virtually air gap the data from the primary.
That's great. Yeah, that means and that goes back to sort of that simplicity piece, right? It's there and it's built in. There's nothing you need to do to set it up or improve it, and there's nothing you need to do to maintain it.
Exactly. So you can't turn it off. And when we talk to customers, with lots of remote offices or lots of sites, again, another big benefit of the Druva platform is that it is a standardized security model. It's a very strict, and we get chosen. Our technology generally gets chosen because of our security, the way that we've implemented security. But there's no variance to it, right? You can't mess it up or forget to encrypt data over here, and or even use different keys or anything like that. It is. It's protected no matter what, and so it just allows for a lot less complexity when it comes to security.
Great. Well, thanks again also for helping today, Jesse, and thank you all for the questions. Feel free to reach out. Again, we gave you some of the resources. Always here to help you explore and make the next step to help you improve your data protection. So thank you for joining us today.
Cheers.
And I would like to add my thanks to everyone for joining us today as well. And we thank our presenters from Druva for a great presentation, a very comprehensive one, no pun intended. And we have a gift card to give away today. And today's winner of a $300 Amazon gift card is Robert Stuckey of Texas. Robert will be reaching out to you after today's event with information on how to collect your winnings. And to everyone, including Robert, please have a wonderful weekend, and we look forward to seeing you on future events.